They see the Instagram, they see you're fabulous, they see you travel, they see the beautiful kids. What do you think people really don't know about you?
I think
You were on top of your game, working at huge companies. Then you started wanting to prioritize your personal life.
29 years old was around the time.
Pushing marriage.
Hard. Once I finally broke into the music industry after like 100 no's, I finally got into the Def Jam Enterprises space and office. I looked around one day like, dang, it shouldn't have been this hard.
My favorite story is with you and Michelle Obama. You were pregnant and you were eating a slice of pizza.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, let me just say this.
Diversity and inclusion. Do you feel like that's like a curse word now?
Yes, we are the hardest workers. We outperform. That's just what we do as women. You know, it's actually an insult and embarrassing for anyone to even refer to someone like Kamala Harris as a DEI hire.
How different is it being honest with yourself now in your 40s than it was gaslighting yourself in your 30s? I'm so excited for you guys to get to know me a little bit more and get to learn some more things about some of my favorite people in my life, industry insiders, because there is always more to the story. I'm Rocsi Diaz, and welcome to More to the Story. Hey guys, Rocsi Diaz, another fabulous episode of More to the Story, and this time it's all about, dare I say it, actually enjoying your Black job. What about that? Or venturing off and choosing yourself over 40, and when all odds are against you, having a meltdown in your personal life, how do you keep it together and how do you keep on going? To the woman that continuously reinvents herself, one of the most beautiful women in the world, girl bosses for sure. My wifey, she was married to me before she went off and really got married. Anyway, my dear friend, Valeisha Butterfield, thank you so much for sitting with me, mama.
Thank you for having me.
Free agent now.
Free agent.
That's crazy.
Rocsi.
Like, you've only known big business corporations since you was interning.
25 years of being attached. And for the first time today, really, this is like day 3, literally, of me being a completely free agent.
How does it feel?
Feels so good. It's crazy because it's like scary, but I'm doing it scared. Like,
Why you say you're doing it scared?
Because I've always had the security blanket of just knowing, okay, I've got a consistent paycheck every 2 weeks. I've got the 401k. I'm making my parents proud, you know, mortgage, kids. And so for me to take the leap, it's not like when we were in our 20s and we could just like do it. Mm-hmm. Like I had to think about all those things. So I'm doing it scared because I don't know what's next financially, but I know I'm like following my dreams.
Yeah, but you had a foundation before you took the leap, which I think is very important. Before anybody that's watching this podcast said, I'm gonna quit today and start following my dreams.
Yeah.
You had a foundation. Yeah. Let's go back to where it started. What I love sitting and listening to you speak on panels is because you talk about the importance of internship, setting those, you know, mm-hmm. foundational roots, learning exactly where you want to be before you say, hey, this is going to be it. Yes. How did your first internship help you to where you are now, Butter?
It's everything. Like I think about even you and how you started out in radio and you started in Chicago and just everywhere that you were. I think so often, you know, we can skip the steps. And so for me, it started as an unpaid intern, 18 years old, working for Wu-Tang Clan in Atlanta. As a student at Clark Atlanta University. And for me, and you know, Rocsi, like I'm from Wilson, North Carolina, like a small little tiny country town, but obsessed with music. And so when I went to Atlanta for college, I remember 18 years old, you know, just determined to intern for anyone in music that would take me. And Wu-Tang was the first to say yes.
Girl, you was hanging out with Method Man before Method Man was like, meth.
No, Rocsi, they were literally in my Toyota Camry, a navy blue 1997 Toyota Camry. And I would literally pick them up from the airport and drive them around Atlanta. I'm talking about Meth, Red, RZA, the whole crew. And that was my job.
That is crazy. I don't even think I knew that part about you.
We still own the car. I still have the car in Wilson, North Carolina.
Are you serious?
Yes.
But that goes to say one thing about you is relationships. Relationships are so important. So to be able to cultivate a relationship like that so early on in your career till now, talk about the importance of relationships and how it's gotten you this far.
I mean, there's not a single opportunity, job, friendship even, that I've ever had that wasn't because of someone else. And I think, sometimes people assume it just means, okay, you just know a lot of people. But it's the exact opposite. I think for me, the relationships were cultivated over time because of just like hard work, right? Like we came up together in New York City. And so we were friends, but I never looked at us as like, just friends who were just figuring it out together. We were grinding together, like literally step by step. And so definitely relationships. I mean, there's, probably, I can call almost anyone now. And get literally. And get a response, but it's not just because of who you know, it's because of what you do and the consistency behind that. And so, yeah, relationships are literally everything.
A lot of times people talk about skipping college, but for you, that was just such a pivotal place to gain so much knowledge too. For people that are in school right now, not really sure where they want to go or what to do, what would be your advice to them?
It's funny because I sit at this interesting intersection, right, of, this, like politics and entertainment and tech. But my parents were civil rights activists turned, elected officials. And so growing up in their home, I mean, I had no other choice but to go to college. Like literally at 18 years old, you're getting out of here and you're going to a college, and they wanted it to be a Black college because they had both graduated from a Black college, North Carolina Central University. And then my grandparents had graduated from Black colleges, Shaw University and Meharry. And so for me, college was never an option. But now in 2024, I'll definitely say the rules are just different. I'm big on education, even with my kids. I'm like, I really want you to go to college. But if my kids or any young person watching said, hey, I'm clear on what I want to do. This is my plan. This is my vision. And I can see that they're serious and they have like a pathway. I don't think it's mandatory anymore the way I used to. But I definitely think that it's helpful because, not just the academic part, but for me, I was so insecure at 18 and so just timid and shy that had I skipped the college part, I wouldn't be sitting here today, like at all.
That's crazy.
At all.
I think of those earlier days of Butter. I call you Butter. Valeisha, guys, for all those tuning in now, but this is a friend for forever. It's either wifey or Butter. And from Ween, where you helped mentor so many young girls through that program, which meant so much to so many people, to now a lot of those girls are bosses, producers, directors, executives in their own rights, killing it, to Seed, and those same relationships crossing over. What makes you even want to start a new venture? So, like, you could even be thinking about calling it, retiring, being in the south of France, just chilling right now, but you're starting up a new venture. How important is it to be able to reinvent yourself and continuously find something else that you love within the industry?
Well, I think, first, I can't be on a yacht right now in the south of France because, if I'm being honest, and I don't think that we have these conversations enough, when you're following your passion often, and especially when you're giving back, you're just trying to do good and not really make money. And so I remember in my 20s and even in my 30s, like just doing it broke, like literally not negotiating my value, not knowing my value, not asking for what I needed, just so grateful and so happy to be in the door and to be doing my thing. And so, it wasn't until I was probably, Rocsi, like 37, 38, that I started getting serious about, okay, I need to retire one day. And I've been playing catch up, to be honest, because before I was just doing it purely for love and passion. Now I'm doing it for both, right? Love, passion, but I understand differently now. Like in order to do good, you have to do well financially. And so, I think I just love what I do, like you do, right? I think about Ween starting, which for anyone watching is the Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. And I was sitting in a cubicle office in New York City with you, working in the music industry, wondering why it was this hard to get in. And you know how hard it is if you want to work in the entertainment industry. You can't just go the traditional route, right? So often, you know, you may get a job by applying for it, you go through your interview process, you have a few referrals, and then boom, if, you know, you make it through the process, you get the job. But the industry, as we know, is so different. And so for me, once I finally broke into the music industry after like 100 no's, like legit 100 no's, and wondering like, what am I doing wrong? When I finally got in to the Def Jam Enterprises space and office, I looked around one day like, dang, it shouldn't have been this hard. And so Ween was started, I mean, before anyone knew my name, because I just said to myself, I felt a responsibility to make it a little bit easier to get in for the women coming behind us.
Do you feel like it's changed a little bit now?
I don't think it's easier, it's just different, right? So I think with social media, and you have LinkedIn, and people can slide in DMs, like I know they do with you and I every day, you know, you have more access, but I don't think it's easier. I think it's actually sometimes harder because there's just so much noise now, right? Like before, we would sit outside of labels or offices of networks and just like camp out until someone came outside, which is actually how I got the Wu-Tang Clan internship. I was just outside waiting for someone to come downstairs. But now it's like, man, you just flooding folks' DMs and then you could get lost.
Did you feel like your time at the Grammys was like the dream come true?
Dream job. Dream job.
And then that was also around the same time. You were at Google.
Yes.
Then you went to the Grammys.
Yes.
It wasn't until you were at Google that I even started hearing about DEI, you know, and now, you know, to even say anything about diversity and inclusion, people are they feel like that's like a curse word now.
Yes.
How do you feel about that entire space and how it's being flipped in the political scene?
It's unbelievable, right? That, you know, something that came from such a good place, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is now being weaponized for political reasons. You know, we know, when you're a part of a marginalized or underrepresented group, right? And we're talking gender, race, age, even ability, right? When you are literally marginalized and not able to have access and equitable access to any type of opportunity, like it was designed to simply level the playing field. And that's it. And, you know, we've seen it happen before, but in this case, DEI is being weaponized. So now folks are literally blaming DEI for the craziest things, or they're acting like it's an unfair advantage when literally, if you look at the data, you'll see it's just leveling the playing field, not moving anyone to the front of the line. And so I think, you know, it's interesting because when you see the word, like the play on words, or when you see, you know, folks just jumping on the bandwagon, you know, I always say, don't panic, right?
When you were hired first at Google and you were hired in this DEI space, right?
Yeah.
Did anybody ever come up to you and tell you you were a DEI hire?
No one ever said it, but in most spaces that I've been in, though, you could definitely feel the energy.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it wasn't like, it's one of those things where, you know, I'm a Black woman with an HBCU degree, you know, working in spaces at a really high level, right? And so often you may have, you know, folks who may wonder if they're from an Ivy League school or they're from a top school like Harvard or Princeton or Yale, they may look at me like, how does she get this job at such a high level? But the receipts are the receipts. And so for me, you know, I no longer worry about anyone wondering if I deserve it. I literally just like push the receipts across the table. But I do feel responsibility though for other women and people who haven't yet built up their resume the way I have and the confidence the way that I have. Like now I feel the need to protect, right? Other people, especially women in that space, because almost always, we are the hardest workers. We outperform, we over deliver. Like that's just what we do as women. And so, you know, it's actually an insult and embarrassing for anyone to even refer to someone like Kamala Harris as a DEI hire. Like, it's actually a joke.
That's actually, yeah.
Like insane.
It's insane. Especially when you say like somebody like you or somebody like her that can provide the receipts of how much work and time that you've put into this. I mean, I even think of it going back all the way to the Obama campaign and how you had us out there on the campaign trail working. Valeisha, you had us out there. You would have thought that Terrence and I were running for office the way that we was out in the streets trying to get those votes, of course. But then when you look at the hard work put in, do you think that there's not the same tenacity now in young people to put in that hard work?
No, I don't. And I think that there's a huge misconception that young people don't work hard anymore. And I don't agree with it. I don't like it. And I always like try to stop it in its tracks when I hear it. I think young people just work differently, right? And so for us, we used to measure our success and our impact based on just like hours and hours and hours put in, right? Like sleep when you're dead. Yeah. What's the energy? Hustle harder. But for young people, I think they're saying, you know what? I'm prioritizing my well-being and focus less on the quantity of hours that I'm putting in and more on like the quality and the impact that I'm delivering. So I respect it. Now, it doesn't mean though that some folks are just lazy, and I don't do lazy. Right. So for me, it's less about young people not working hard or respecting the hustle, but I think it's us finding that middle ground where it's like, okay, you know, you can work hard too, right? And focus on your well-being as long as you're getting ish done. Right. Like that's the most important thing.
Now, you were on top of your game, working at huge companies, the most beautiful woman in the world, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Then you started wanting to prioritize your personal life.
29 years old was around the time.
Pushing marriage.
Hard.
Yeah. At the same time that you and I were in our careers, you were really focused on wanting to have a family and be married and be a wife. I remember that was a priority for you. Looking back at it now, would you have done anything differently? And do you feel the same about prioritizing marriage as you did back then and still being able to focus on your career?
You know, and you were there for all of this. Like,
yes, I was.
Woo, child. I mean, for me, right, I remember, like, I lived my 20s, right, with no regrets. Like, dated, got a couple rings, returned a few rings. Like, you know, I literally lived out loud because it was important.
Wait, you had a ring before that ring?
I had a few rings, girl.
I didn't know that. Why am I just not figuring out that? I ain't even get one ring yet, Butter, and I'm already in my 40s.
I'm saving for the big one for you.
No, bitch, you gotta give it to me. You got rings stacked up. I don't got
like
one.
19 carats.
No. Okay, wait. Well, I'm not that even in the partner part. But when you finally decided to prioritize personal life, family.
Well, I mean, that was it. So I dated. So I was, for sure, work was first, right? Like, I knew what I wanted to do was hard. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do was not something I'd seen before in my family, right? So my parents and grandparents went down a totally different path. And so for me, I knew I had to like lock in and have tunnel vision to make this entertainment thing real. But I also was in New York City, single, dating, and I was like, this actually sucks, right? Like, it's fun, but it doesn't feel real. And so I remember being obsessed with this idea of turning 30, as you remember. I was like, I'm turning 30, I'm, you know, getting of a certain age, and I don't have anything I said I would have at 30, right? I wanted the husband, the kids, I wanted to own the home, I wanted all the things. And I looked around my studio apartment, which you remember, in Manhattan, and I had a boyfriend at the time, which you remember. And I just stopped. I left everything behind and moved to Chicago because I felt like 30 meant you had to be serious. And it was around that time that I just became obsessed, if I'm being honest.
Obsessed.
Like obsessed.
Yeah, no, you were obsessed.
Like obsessed with having a family.
Yeah.
And being married and getting serious. And so in like a 3-year period, it was a wrap. Like I was married, pregnant, you know, working towards the house. And you know, to answer your question, I don't think I would have done anything differently. And I think it's still important for any young woman who wants that, right? Who wants marriage, who wants a kid, to put that at the same level or close in priority to their career. I still think that that's important because the reality is that we do want certain things that unfortunately time, right, can change. And so I think it's still important, but not at the expense of your happiness at all. And I think sometimes we ignore the signs, like when we know it's not right, but we're just trying to get to the finish line, or we just want to get to the babies and the ceremony. And I think for me, prioritizing and being honest with myself about, am I really happy? Is this person really happy? Or did it change? Like those things are the things that I think are important now that I wasn't really paying attention to before.
How different is it being honest with yourself now in your 40s than it was gaslighting yourself in your 30s?
It's hard. It's like really hard. And I think we don't talk enough about, you know, love after 40. Like seriously, because I think, you know, we talk a lot, to me at least, I know I talk a lot about, you know, being in love and having relationships when you're struggling. But sometimes, you know, you reach 40 and you might have success. And I didn't know how to handle love and success. I knew how to handle love and struggle, right? But love and success was a new dynamic that, you know, many of us have never experienced before. And so for me, I think, you know, in my 40s, now single, you know, with a successful career, I have kids, you know, I think that it's hard. It's like really hard because, you know, you still feel like, you know, the same person you were at 20, but you're much more mature, right? You care about different things, right? The things I tolerated at 25, I'm not tolerating now. And so I think that's the hard part because I have different boundaries now than I've ever had. And that feels so good, but it also can be very lonely.
Making the dating pool even smaller and smaller.
It's like this big right now, or like non-existent.
Is it because you feel like you've been looking in the same pool? What, I guess it's like, you know how you always say like, we have our list, right? And I know my list back then is definitely like I could tolerate, okay, if you got 7 out of the 10 traits that I'm looking for, I could probably tolerate that. As in before, I was like, no, I want all 10. I want all 10.
Yeah.
So for you, what have you been a little bit more giving with, and what are you more protective with, especially because you have 2 young boys at home?
I mean, for sure, God first, right? And I think that's important. A man that has like a real relationship with God.
I was about to say, don't let that trick you again, because I remember when you came screaming home, he was reading the Bible, girl, in bed. He wasn't even out in these streets. So I'm like,
a real relationship.
Okay, butter. Sure. His playbook was inside of that Bible.
Oh my God, my mom said the same thing. Yes, a real relationship with God, but I mean, not for me to judge, right? But right, like a relationship with God for sure. But then like kindness. Like real kindness. And sometimes, you know, I think, you know, someone can be kind to us, but rude to the waiter. Or someone could be kind to us and rude to the person they think they don't need. So like really paying attention to kindness, not just between the two of us, but like the people around them. That's important. Ideally, someone who's been through some things, right? I think experience is sexy.
Yeah.
Right? So someone that has like, you know, earned some stripes, right? Took some lumps, maybe made some mistakes. I like that. And I think also just fun, right? I think being like enjoying laughter is something that wasn't as important to me before, but it is now. I'll say this though, once you start to, you know, get the things that you wanted in life, right? So it's like the career, the job, the money, I don't care as much about that anymore in a partner as I used to. In my 20s, I definitely was like, I want someone that's successful because I'm going to be successful and I want to be this power couple thing. And
so in the 20s, it was more like for the look. Now for the 30s, now for your 40s, it's more about like the actual real relationship, you think?
Yeah.
How difficult was it for you with 2 young boys to go through such a public divorce?
You know, it's funny because a lot of people that care about me and us, you know, would say to me all the time, I'm talking about family, friends, even colleagues at work, and they would say, you know, I know divorce can be embarrassing, I never felt that emotion. I didn't at all.
Yeah, because he's the one that needed to be embarrassed. If anything, sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Don't add sorry, not sorry.
But thank you. But I really feel like, my parents were married for 20 years, now divorced for 30 years. But yet my grandparents were married for 75 years. And so I've seen both in my family, and I never felt like divorce was embarrassing. I understand why a lot of people do feel that way, but for me, I'm more embarrassed to be in a relationship that has expired, right? And is no longer the season for it. And so for me, I think it got good when I got honest. Mm-hmm. And I think we both got honest with each other and ourselves about, divorce doesn't mean you hate each other, right? Divorce doesn't mean it was bad. It just means that it's no longer. And so for me, that got me into a place that I felt more like, okay, right? But it was a journey, right? I definitely had like extreme lows, therapy, the whole thing. But I can say now I'm at a space where I'm like, you know what? Everything's for a reason. And, that reason is because I have two beautiful sons, that were born out of this marriage. But the hard part is, how do you tell your kids? Mm-hmm. That was hard. And I think for both of us, we didn't know how to do it. And we avoided it for a long time. And so, I think they both, and not just both of our boys together, but our entire family of children, right? Deserved probably more of like a real conversation, but we didn't know yet, right? What was going to happen. And I don't think that we had the skills at the time or tools to share it with them because we didn't know. So we didn't know how to say it. I think now though, everyone feels like they're in a good place of acceptance. But it doesn't mean it wasn't hard. But I think it's how you operate by putting the kids first, how you operate by still like bringing joy into the home, even if it means it looks different without both parents being there. I think we found a good rhythm, but it took a while though, for sure.
What would you have told your younger self that was so eager to get married back then?
Slow down. Baby girl, slow down.
38, 30, like you think.
30, right? Like even in my 40s, I still feel like I'm just getting started, right? So I think for sure 30 would have been like, all right, chill out, right? You're good.
When you were going through it during that time of like really pressing like kids and marriage and stuff like that, you made me stressed.
I stressed everybody out.
Yeah.
I stressed everyone out.
We're like, oh, what are we doing wrong with our life right now? Like, if Butterfield has to get married, then we definitely have to. And for so long, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong.
No.
I'm doing something wrong. You would have told yourself to slow down.
Yeah, slow down. And I want to be honest though, right? Like, I know for me, if today I were sitting here having not been married, without children, I think that I would be happy still, but I do think for me, I would have still been longing for that. Mm-hmm. So I got to be honest. I have to be honest about that part. But not with the level of like, I got to have it now that I had before. But I wanted it. And I think I would have still wanted had I not done it. But yeah, I definitely would have been like, slow down. And, it's one of those things where like I try not to have any regrets, but when I look back, I was definitely trying to get down the aisle with someone that I loved, by the way. Mm-hmm. So like was in love for sure, but had to speed that thing up. And so I think that was the hard part because I just wanted the wedding.
Yeah.
I wanted the marriage too, but I wanted the wedding and I wanted the ceremony and I wanted, all the things that my Southern traditional brain felt like I needed at the time.
And a wedding was had. That you did have.
Had, honey.
You had a hell of a wedding. That's for damn sure. There's been so many moments in your career that I can think of. Me, myself, some of my favorite stories were when you were close with the Obamas. My favorite story is with you and Michelle Obama and how you were pregnant and you were eating a slice of pizza.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just say this. I worked for the Obamas in the administration and in the campaign for a total of about 4 years. Mm-hmm. But my first time ever meeting then Senator Barack Obama was before he had ever even announced that he was running. And I'll never forget working in the music industry in New York City. And my boss at the time was supposed to go to this fundraiser for this candidate that everyone thought would be the first Black president of the United States. And it was Harold Ford Jr. out of Tennessee. So everyone was like rallying around, you know, this young, fly, you know, smart, young guy out of Tennessee named Harold Ford Jr. And so I show up to this event, and it's like one of those days when you're not prepared. So I'm like in jeans, maybe a t-shirt, not expecting this like moment to happen that night. And I walked in, and everyone, because you know how energy works, right? So the whole room is kind of like swarming around Harold Ford Jr. And then there's this like skinny guy in the corner by himself waiting to introduce Harold Ford Jr. And it was Senator Barack Obama.
Wow.
Literally in a corner by himself. And this is maybe a year before he announced. And so I remember, you know, at this event, and it's not a big event. So it's at a car dealership on the West Side in Manhattan, and maybe 50 people were there max. And I remember somehow someone introduced Senator Obama and I. He talked about change. He talked about hope, right? Like all the things. And he said, you know, if we, you know, as we move forward, we want to get more of the entertainment industry involved in civic participation. And I'm like, all right, cool. Here's my card, whatever. And the team actually followed up after he announced. Like, what? And so I remember just grinding, and calling up people like LeBron James and others who had never heard of this senator, saying, you know, would you consider supporting this candidate? And one by one, they said, yes, LeBron is an example. He and I recently had a conversation about that, LeBron. And I said, do you remember when I called you and Mav and your whole team, Brandy, about this event in Ohio? And he was like, I do remember. And I pulled up in a pickup truck with Randy and no one was there. I said, exactly. Like, that's the level of like grassroots that we were operating from then. And this is like 2007, maybe early 2007. And so fast forward to he's elected. It's a big moment. And then he actually introduced me. I wonder if they even remember this, but he actually introduced me in the White House once that he was elected to First Lady Michelle Obama. And he's amazing. She's incredible.
Right.
Like,
she's everything.
She's like everything. And I just remember being introduced to her, and she was just so beautiful and poised and just like kind and generous with her time. And I almost passed out. So I was just like, oh gosh, she's everything. But fast forward over time, you know, I worked for them for several years. And so whenever we were in the same spaces, they were and are the most humble, genuine, authentic people on the planet. And so sure enough, I'm working for President Obama's re-election campaign. I'm the National Youth Vote Director. I remember finally sharing the news with the team in headquarters in Chicago that I was expecting my first child as a newlywed. And I was eating pizza every single day. I'm talking, y'all, every single day. I ate, it's so embarrassing. I told my son this the other day because he's 12 now, DJ. I said, I ate pizza, Papa John's pizza, not Chicago pizza, but like Papa John's pizza every single day when I was pregnant with you. Real story, and Panda Express. And I remember sitting in the office one day, and I believe the Obamas, or maybe First Lady Michelle Obama, like popped into the office. We were all working late, and I just remember like, you know, you can have a salad with that, because I was just grinding and not being healthy. But another example of how I think, you know, whenever you work with someone so closely, or for, you know, this like group of people, like we just wanted to win. And we were neglecting our health sometimes. I was, and that was a reminder, and that like a very human reminder in that moment, like, girl, have a salad. Take care of that baby.
Right, get it together.
Yeah.
And with that, you've taken care of and nurtured this beautiful career, and now you have this new baby of seed to nurture. So tell us about this new venture.
You know, I've spent 25 years working for other people, and it's been a beautiful journey. I wouldn't change a thing, but it started with Wu-Tang Clan and wanting to work in the music business. And then I finally was able to navigate through. And then I wanted to work in politics for, President Barack Obama. And I was able to do that and blessed to have that journey. And then Google, right? Because I wanted to challenge myself with tech. And then the Grammys, right? Which was a dream job, and still on the board, still involved, but, working as their chief diversity officer. And then Harvey Mason Jr., CEO of the Grammys, promoting me to co-president. And it's been this beautiful journey of me building other people up and building other brands up and being a little afraid, right, to just bet on myself. But I always wanted to venture into film and TV, which is what I'm doing now. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and a founder, but didn't quite know how because I became so comfortable working for someone else. Mm-hmm. And so literally just launched for the first time my venture, which is called Seed. That's a multimedia platform that focuses on taking best-selling books and adapting them for TV and film production. And so my first film, we just wrapped it, starring Kyla Pratt, based on The Memo, an award-winning book, big book that transformed workplace culture for women by an amazing author named Minda Harts. And so I just wrapped my first film. I self-funded it because I think it's, it's important. And this is what I've learned from young people too, to bet on you, right? And I think, we get scared sometimes. And, it's one thing to bet on yourself when you don't have any other option.
Right.
But it's also hard to bet on yourself when you have all the things, right? Like dream salary, dream career, right? Access to do whatever I want to do professionally, getting calls by the day to come work for big companies, CEO offers coming in, and saying no, right? Saying no for the first time feels good, but doing it scared.
What do you think people have to do when they're approaching betting on themselves? What do you have to have laid down before you take that jump?
I think for me, you have to be calculated, right? So it means first having a clear vision, right? Like a really clear vision. And, sometimes we want to do 10 things or even 5 things. And for me, I can't speak for everyone else. I have to have one thing that I know for sure is my North Star and the moonshot and the thing that I want to get done. Before I had 3 and I could never land because I was just trying to do the most. And so for me, I think it's clear vision first. You also have to have capital, straight up, right? I think often, we do things the hard way, but there's a way to do things sometimes where you can finance your dreams. And so it took a lot of saving for me. It took a lot of sacrifice for me. Not getting the purse I wanted to get, right?
Not getting the purse.
I'm serious, right? Or not getting the car at the time that I wanted and delaying that because I was no, I need to really focus. And so for me, it's the capital that I needed to at least have a transition. And then, you have to really go hard. And that's the thing I think you see on social media, people glamorize entrepreneurship. I'm a boss. That is hard.
Yeah.
Right. And having a 9-to-5 for sure is hard. But then branching out to do your own thing, you're literally doing everything now, even with a team. I have a great team and I'm still doing everything hands-on. And so it's understanding that it's going to be hard. Yeah. And being okay with that.
Politics, I've always seen it in your future. Do you see it in your future?
Okay, so I'm the third, I would be if I ran for office, the 3rd generation elected official in my family. I don't know if you knew this. So my mom's family is all from North Carolina, rural South. And my dad's family is all from Bermuda. And my grandfather immigrated from Bermuda when he was 18 years old. It's a long story, but basically he ended up going to dental school, becoming a dentist, running for office, and winning. And so he was an elected official back in North Carolina in the 1920s or 30s. I mean, early. Yeah. Maybe, I need to get the years right, but very, very early. And it was very controversial, right? Because we're talking about in the segregated South at the time. But my father, Superior Court judge, Supreme Court justice in North Carolina, then U.S. Congress. And then my mom, elected official in the state house in North Carolina. And I'll be honest, it was something I never wanted to do because I just saw how much it took for them to do it, right? We saw everything in our home. You know, there were people that would knock on our door at 3 a.m. You know, there were people, or not people, but, you know, a few death threats received. Like when I was a kid, I remember seeing the mail coming in. And I think it's hard because, you know, it is truly a selfish job, right? I mean, if we look at the news today and we see what the presidential candidates receive, right? Now 10x that for your local candidates.
Yeah.
Because you're still going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right? You're still
accessible.
You're still accessible, right? You don't have Secret Service. You don't have the ability to move privately, right? Nor should you, because you're from the community and you have to be out, but it's a hard spot to be in. And so I think, I don't know is the answer. I don't know if it's in my future, but I know if I ever did it, I would have to do it really thoughtfully because I don't want my kids to, you know, experience that. Yeah. To be honest.
Well, just be on a higher level and just run for president. I mean, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. I mean, you know I'm your biggest fan at the end of the day.
Ditto.
You constantly reinvent yourself. You're never scared to jump into a new venture. But this venture is different because now, like you said, you're betting on yourself.
Yes.
In your 40s, where most wouldn't even think about starting over again. So what advice would you have to those women who are timid, scared to start over again, especially with everything else you're bringing to the table with you? Kids, past career, identity that you've been attached to other companies, but now you're attached to you. What kind of advice would you give to those women?
The best advice I can give to anyone, especially women watching who are over 40 or thinking about 40, right? Like we were. I was obsessed with 40 when I was 20.
You were obsessed with 30.
I was obsessed with 30 for sure. And then I became obsessed with 40. But the best advice I received was from Mother Bevy Smith. And it gets greater later. It does. It gets greater later. And I think, you know, media, right, like advertising, whatever, right, has made us feel like we have this like weird expiration date at 40, but I know, and I know you too, feel like we're just getting started.
Yes.
Like legit. And I know it sounds cliche to say it, but like I feel better now than I did at 25. I think I look better now than I did at 25. You too, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Because we know how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we know what we want and we know what we don't want. And so for anyone watching that feels like their dreams are over, right? Or maybe you've put all of your focus on your partner, or you've put all of your focus on your kids and their dreams, and you like put yourself in the back seat. I would say it's time to get in the driver's seat, like now. And don't wait, like do it with urgency, do it with a level of courage and passion that you didn't even know was in you.
What do you think is that one thing that people don't know about Valeisha Butterfield?
Besides,
they see the Instagram, they see you're fabulous, they see you travel, they see the beautiful kids, the lifestyle, but what do you think people really don't know about you?
I think one is that I'm really goofy and silly. You know
that
this.
You are.
And
that
clumsy.
You are.
So I don't know why I give off this like, oh, white blouse. Because I'm like the goofiest.
Ketchup stain.
I fall and trip on like red carpets. I'm literally the one that's like on the ground for no reason because I can't walk on my heels. Well, so besides the funny parts that you get to see and my friends get to see, I think I'm like really, really shy and sensitive and an introvert. And I think sometimes people feel like I'm just quiet or I'm not paying attention or I don't care, but I'm actually like super introvert living an extroverted life. And so I think a lot of people don't know that about me. I think the main thing though that people don't know is that I just want to see other women win.
That I know. I think everybody knows that.
Okay, I do.
You're great at lifting other girls.
I'm obsessed with other women winning.
Yeah.
Like it's the thing that gets me going. It's the thing that motivates me. And whenever I see like any hint of like fear or doubt, like that makes me want to go harder for that woman because, you know, I think I know what that feels like.
Why do you think it's so important for women to support women and champion each other to win?
Because we all we got, right? And it doesn't mean that we don't need our brothers. And it doesn't mean that we don't value men, right? But what I know for sure is that when women support women, the unthinkable things happen, right? Like the things that we kept inside and didn't say out loud, we now believe, right? So when you have your girl tribe, when you have the group text, when you have the energy in the DMs, or just like the girlfriend moments at home, like it's actually what refuels us. And it's what like makes us go harder. And so I think whenever I see women supporting women, it's like magic. It's like magic when women support women. And I think, you know, what's been top of mind for me especially as I raise young boys, is not leaving the guys behind, right? Because what women have right now is like really special.
Yeah.
Like they're like golden girls. I don't know what's going on, but it's good, right? Like it feels good because we were the ones we needed.
Yeah.
And now that we're figuring that out, I think, you know, it's also important for me to like pour that though into the young men that I'm raising too.
I love that. So wait, where do we go find out more about Seed?
Okay, so go to my website, seedmediacompany.com. Or just hit me on Instagram, follow me at Valeisha. Lots of dope stuff coming. All women teams, all women producers, women led, women funded, women owned. So we've got some dope stuff coming that you're gonna love.
Thank you so much for your time,
you.
wifey. You're amazing.